I'm Dick Termes. I would like to show you some special ways to draw a cube. This technique, I think, is much simpler than a lot of times when you try and draw cubes. What I do is I actually approach it this way. I start with a square, like this, and the square I draw is running parallel to that edge here and this edge. We'll call these number 1 lines. And then the top and the bottom are number 2 lines. And that's usually how I start the cube. But also you can play with the cube being very tall. So I like to make sure that you know that when I talk about a cube, it can be in any kind of shape or any kind of, to start with shape, and then it turns into all kinds of different forms. This is the next step, is the third dimension, coming off this corner here and coming off this corner, running up parallel lines that are number 3 lines, okay? Okay, so now it's going back in space. If it actually goes the same distance back in space, you don't have to worry about whether it squares up with the rest of it. If you cut across here and it looks exactly like a number 2, then you've done it right. In other words, and the same way here, this should turn into a number 1 line. And they should be parallel. Now let me explain parallel lines just a little bit. The number 2 lines are running this direction, like that. And so those are number 2s. There shows the number 2 right there. All right. And the number 1 lines, let me have that be blue, are running like this, straight up and down, like the edge of your sheet of paper or the edge of my board here. So these are number 1 lines. And number 1, I'm going to add a little blue here just so you know where it's at. And then the third set, I'm going to make green, going back in space, and it's actually going back like this in space. That's your number 3, okay, and number 3 up here is like that. And whenever you draw a cube or you add a bunch of cubes together or anything, all you have are 3 sets of parallel lines. Once you get that in your head, it really helps make this work quite well. So the same thing runs over here. These are number 1s. These are number 2s up here. And number 3s go back in space like this. All right? And then you cut it off with the number, I'm going to cut it off up here with the number 2, so I make sure I keep it on the page, and run a number 1 down until it runs into this one. And we have a very tall cube compared to this cube. And the number 3 lines here. All right, so that's your 3 sets of parallel lines. And you can actually lay this whole grid over the whole thing if you want to, if it helps, or start with a grid sheet of paper and draw on the grids, just to get it in your head to start with, because that's the important part of this. Okay, so, and what's interesting about this is this can turn into realistic stuff. Throughout this, we're going to be drawing the basic structure, getting the basic form, and then we're going to come back and a lot of it will turn into realistic images. Like for instance this, typically could become a house. And what I'm doing here is finding the center of this square and projecting up from that, so high like this, and then cutting across to this corner and that corner. That's the front of the house. I'm going to just do a little erasing here, so you get the front of the house. And then we need another 3 line back here that runs parallel to those. And then this we'll call this 0 line, has to be copied back here. It has to be parallel to a 0 back there. And then the same way here, this would come back down to here and be on the other side. So let's erase just a little bit more here, and you'll see a little house in there. And it helps to add a little bit of identity, other little details to this, like a door and a window. Maybe a door right here. And you also find out how big the house is by how big the door is in the window. So we're going to just do a basic door and a window, and say 2 windows over here, just for the heck of it. Put one there and one here. And notice when I put these on here that they actually fit on the square. They're a miniature of the plane that they're on. When it's on this plane over here, they have to look like that plane when you add a little window on. So that's just one of the ideas of this. We'll put a little, I mean, you could just play with this. So that's the thing about this, is that you can really have a lot of fun with it. This particular shape reminds me of, see if you notice it, if you figure it out before I tell you. If you get rid of some of this stuff in here, so it becomes a little more identifiable. Curve that on the bottom a little bit, and add a bunch of lines in here. And then you write on here, a book. So I mean, that's just a simple way to draw a book. So I mean, the cube itself has all kinds of different types of things. I think like 80% of the world, especially everything that man makes, tends to come out of cubes. One of the logics of this is the cube. Once you start with a cubical house, you have to have cubical furniture inside. Everything has to be based on the cube to fit. So it's pretty logical why we have so many cubical structures. This is the basic cube, and one of the most important things for drawing or photography, because this fits photography very, very well too, is the artistic angle. And what is the best artistic angle? Or what does it even mean to have an artistic angle? What that means is to find an angle to look at this from, so that it shows that it's the cube the best. Now, for instance, if I were to hold this straight at you like that, you wouldn't know it was a cube for sure. It's just one square. If I were to even tip it like this, you get 2 sides, and it still is not very identifiable. When you tip it so it's on, you see the top and 2 sides, that's the most artistic angle. And that means that it's the most readable as a cube, or a refrigerator, or a house, or whatever it is you're looking at that might be in a cubical shape. So that's like one of the most important things you can learn. A lot of people will say, when they're drawing, they'll say, well, look just like this. Well, but there's still, you got to change the angle. An artist will spend a lot of time readjusting the angle that he shoots this from or draws this from. And that's what gives them an object that really looks like a cube more than other people's. So that's very important, I think, in this. And that's the reason I picked these angles. See, you're seeing 3 different sides of each one of these. So that's what's very important, I think. We did a little video that shows this very, very well, I think, and take a look at this video. The view of the cube changes depending on where it's located in relationship to your eye. If it's right in front of your eye, like this, you're only going to see a large rectangle and one side. If the cube is above your head, you're going to see the bottom of it, and again, only one other side. If the cube is below you, you will finally see the top of the cube and one side. So the way you see the cube is completely different depending on where it is in relationship to your eye. Here are some examples of cubes that I've drawn.
you can see that there are many things that have a cube as its base form. We also took some photos of cubes around us in the real world. This is a fun activity to do on your own as well. Notice all the parallel lines.
You may notice when you're looking at the brick that the lines that we draw in there are a little different system than the lines that we use in ours. The brick has a tendency in the photographs to look like this. It projects back in space like so, and you end up with a brick that looks like that. And the thing that I'm trying to get you to do is straighten this out in the front so that it actually runs square like so, and that the back end would run square too. It's just a simpler system of drawing. It makes you be able to pick up these ideas a lot easier. So that's one of the things I just wanted to point out to you, because it's something you look at, you say, hey, that isn't the way it looks like we're drawing, but all drawing is different systems. And so we're trying to pick out this simpler system of drawing. And you might also notice my drawings aren't always perfect, and I don't expect yours to be perfect. But it's the system that we're trying to get into our mind. That's what it's all about. So I just wanted to explain that part to you.
Let's go back to the studio and find a cube to draw on our own.
I hope you liked that video, and I hope you liked the photographs that were done to show you the different cubical forms in nature. And I think both of them tying together really help you understand how many cubes are out there. I mean, if you sometime grab your own camera, run around, see if you can find some photographs like that of cubes. Keep a little collection of that, so when you go to draw, you have those to look at. Also, one of the things I've learned about drawing cubes is that there's left-handed people and right-handed people in the world. And I think that if you're right-handed, I think you have a tendency to want your lines to run back in space like this. Okay? If you're left-handed, I'm going to redraw this. I think you want your lines to run back in space this way. It just is easier to draw. It's hard for me to pull that direction, easier for me to push away from myself. So I think that's a logical thing that, so your number 3 lines back here would be maybe going in a different direction. All right? Okay, so just as a beginner, that's something just a little tidbit to think about. What we're going to do, you know, we sometimes you actually see objects and you want to be able to draw the object, and sometimes you actually think about the object and you want to draw that out of your head. Like for instance, I was looking around in the studio and I found this Kleenex box. And you know, you need to look around your studio, and I hope you have a sheet of paper out and constantly are drawing along with me. That's the whole idea of this, okay? So I found this Kleenex box, and I'm looking at it, trying to figure out how do you draw that in an artistic way. That's the first thing I would have to think about. You wouldn't want to draw it like this. That doesn't look like a Kleenex box. That doesn't look like a Kleenex box. So you want to get around here where the details are, right? So first of all, the artistic angle has to be thought of for the cube, but also for the imagery that the particular object has. It's different than anything else. So I would pick this kind of an angle like this for you, down on the top side and this side a little bit too. And I'm going to start by trying to, but one of the things that is very important, and some people do this in different ways. I always like to draw the whole object, the solid part of the object first, and later come back with the rest. And with this technique, this will be the rectangle that I'm going to start with, right here. and try and get it to be the proportion of that. And then coming back in space with your number 3 lines that are parallel to each other and all the same distance long, but you want them to look like that proportion. I would say it's about like that. And I'm going to cut it off back here. And that corner there is going to be coming across here. I'm going to actually change this line a little bit and get it more like that. All right, so that's kind of the proportion that I'm playing with. That's what I'm looking at. And so now we'll get into the details, okay? We're looking at this curve, and we know that that's centered in the box. So I'm going to find the center of this line right here, and then go back in space a little bit here, and the same amount back over here. So I'm thinking that's the size of that hole. And then it projects back to a point in the middle of this line. So to actually measure, look at those two and see if you can find the center of it, and then move out in order to get that little space there about that far. So now all I have to do is make a curve like this from here over to there, and make a curve from here over to this line. And I have that little cut that's ripped out on the top at least. Now we got to get the bottom. And the bottom, you can see, aims down here about to the middle of this. So I'm going to find the middle of this first, from here to here. Might be back just a little bit. And then I'm going to, it's right about there, I'm going to say. And it's up about this high. It's up, maybe not quite that high, right there. Now I'm going to curve this down to here and swing it back up to there. All right, so now I have the Kleenex line, the basic structure of it. I'm going to get rid of this line because this disappears now, right? So I'm going to erase that line and have the open Kleenex. But there's Kleenexes in there. They run about halfway up the box. So they actually, and they run parallel to this line down below. Okay? These Kleenexes, I'm going to add a whole bunch of lines in here because there's a whole bunch of Kleenexes that are running across here. And if you look close, you can see the back of it, back of the Kleenexes. They're running back about right here. And this line runs parallel also to this line and this line. They're all number 3 lines. So this is a number 3 line. And if depending on how much I tilt it, I could actually see the back of the Kleenexes in there. But this has to run, the back of the Kleenexes have to run like that line too. I think I'm going downhill just a little bit too much. I'm going to bring that up. So, and with a little bit of color, I think it would, getting this blue and this white would really separate it out too. And this kind of a gray color back in here, this little area. And then the detail, every Kleenex box has different designs on it. This one has kind of a neat one that actually fits with the box. It's designed to fit right into the corners. So I'm going to just do a little bit of that, but I'll probably just do it very lightly. It comes like that and projects down like this, projects across over here. When you draw the designs, always remember that they have to flow with the structure of the box itself, the different planes. This changes planes, so it's going to be pointing back that way. And then there's this little fancy stuff in here, fancy stuff in there and here. And same thing over on this side. So a little bit of the details is really what this amounts to. And you have sort of the basis of a Kleenex box that you're actually looking at. Now the other opposite thing is to not look at it, but think about it in your head. Let me try that, because a lot of times I actually spend more time inside my head than I do looking at objects. So I like to see if I can actually see it in my head and draw what I see in my head. So let me see if you can figure out what I'm drawing. If I start with a basic cube shape, but it has to be the particular shape or form that I want my object to be in. So I have to think about that. Okay, number 3 lines, cutting it off parallel to the front lines. This coming off the given corner with the number 2 line here, 2, 2, 2. Okay, and then I'm gonna get a few details in here. The thing I'm thinking of runs like this, and that has to run parallel to these lines. This line runs parallel to the back. Okay, and this has to run out the same distance as that. And then I'm going to add a little extra depth line in here. Going down, that has to run parallel to number 2's. And then the front of it, way down below here, is a little cube, a little tiny cube. It sits in there, has to be equal here to there. And then a couple of knobs down here. And then the cord, there needs to be a little cord on this. Let me get rid of these 2's. I don't want to mess up my drawing here. All right, and then I'm going to say the back side here is this little cord that runs like that. And if I do that very much precise, if I were doing it, and it fits on something that looks like this and plugs into the wall. Hopefully you see that as a toaster. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope you'll get out and get your sketchbook out and try and do some of this. This is a really nice technique when you start with the square or the rectangle in the front. It just makes it a little bit easier. Thanks a lot for watching. Come back next time when we add cubes to cubes.